Welcome to the Aha Moments radio show for the inspiration, education, and celebration of enlightened living worldwide with your host, Mariana Cooper, founder of Aha Moments International and AhaMomentsWorld.com. Tune in for the next hour and learn to trust your aha moments to lead the way to live a passionate and purposeful life. And now here's your host, Mari.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Aha Moments radio show for the inspiration, education, and celebration of enlightened living worldwide. I'm Mari. Happy Tuesday, and I cannot get over the technology issues I am having right now. I cannot get my computer to work, so I literally have not even on the board for the show. I'm just talking into the phone at this point. And so I just had to call Sam and get the number, and oh my gosh, I literally got in here 5 seconds before the intro started. So oh my God. Okay, breathe, Mari, breathe. It's like panic. Anyway, happy Tuesday. Today is the first day, well, actually the second day of Mercury in retrograde, and that's going until June 11th, and, you know, it's hitting hard here, so just batten down the hatches. I was actually going to go into the zone of, okay, I'm not going to deal with Mercury in retrograde this time. I'm going to pretend it's not happening, and like yesterday when I was setting up the show, it literally wiped out the entire description of the show 3 times. I had to re-enter the whole thing 3 times. So anyway, here we go, off into the next 3 weeks of this. But in any event, tonight's show is Will versus Grace, how to solve your problems energetically. And this one is a real important show to me. I know that, you know, I have a lot of clients. I've gone through it myself, where you feel like you're just hitting the bottom, like you're all tapped out for answers, you're all tapped out for energy, and you really just need, you know, that lift, that support. And the thing that's really interesting, especially when you are smart and when you've been studying for a long period of time of this kind of stuff, you start to try to use force, or what we call will, to make it happen. You know, we hear from 2 schools of thought. Usually we turn to 2 places when I can't get over how slow my computer's place is, when we're looking for help and support, right? A lot of times we'll turn to, 3 places: formal religion, we'll turn to spirituality, and we'll also turn to personal development. So the personal development space is usually like someone like Anthony Robbins, or who are some of the other real good, you know, like, I'm going to just stick with Tony because I'm not thinking of all the different people, but like Tony Robbins is a great example because he talks about massive action, you know, just go at it, you know, leave no stone unturned, you know, kind of punch your way through to success, you know. And then there's someone like a Joel Osteen, who I was talking about last week, which is all about, you know, faith and leave it up to God, and, you know, he's on the throne and you just have to show up. And then you have the spirituality space, which is kind of the 2 combined. You have you know, we're co-creators, and we have to take, you know, massive action to get this thing to, you know, come to fruition. But we also have to relax and let go and let God. And those combination, that spin of kind of do everything and do nothing, can get very, very frustrating. It can get very, very frustrating. So today what I wanted to talk about was when is the time to use your might, and when is the time to chill and to allow, okay? And there is a fine balance between the 2. There's a very fine balance between the 2. We hear so much, and it's been one of my biggest frustrations because, you know, as a business person, you are about taking action. You're thinking, okay, I'm supposed to go and, I have all these expectations on me, and then he's got to produce this much product or this much content, and we have all these deadlines and timelines and numbers to meet and all that kind of stuff. And then you have this kind of more altruistic approach where you have the desire to give from your heart, and the desire to go with the flow, and the desire to honor the timing and things, like the divine timing and things. And so, and sometimes when you're muscling your way through, you get great results. You're like, I decided to just go that extra mile and just pump out that extra, octane, and boom, the result happens. Then there's other times when you go to that and you hit a dead end. You hit a wall. There's times when you say, okay, I'm going to just let it all go. I just don't know what else to do. I'm going to let it all go. And when you let it go, there's, when you let it go, all of a sudden some big crescendo happens. You receive the reward or whatever it is you were attempting to do. Other times you let go and nothing happens. And then you panic and you make a kind of snap decision and you get sort of a temporary solution, right? You get a temporary solution, but you don't get the full-on thing that heals the whole. So I went into my channeling space and I started to ask about this. And I got a very, very interesting answer. And that answer was, you don't need to have all the faith for us. You don't need to have all of the faith for us. What we need is just a tiny bit of faith. We need the faith of a mustard seed. And then let us give the other 80%. So you give up 20% of faith, and we'll make up the other 80%. Because that faith is the vulnerability that you create. So you have that little 20% of faith, and then there's 80% empty. So for us, it feels empty, right? It feels like, oh my, I got nothing. For our guides, though, it's like, oh, she's given us space to work. She's given us space to work. She's opened up a space for us to create what she's asking for, what he's asking for. And when that space opens up, that's when the real miracles can actually take place. And I'm not talking about the Band-Aids, okay? I'm not talking about the Band-Aids. What I'm talking about is the genuine, long-term healings. And I want you to think about your biggest issues right now. And I want you to think about, what are you asking for? I found that I was always asking for meantime money. I was always making the assumption that my bigger goals were really far off in the distance and that I needed to have a way to have, money in the meantime. And that money in the meantime mentality lasted for a decade and a half because I was always, on this entrepreneurial path that really didn't have a direct line, right? Not like my corporate career did, where you're just trying to go up the ladder and, get the better job and the better job and the better job. So what ultimately happened was I realized that I was always living off of gigs, one gig to the next gig, and then big gaps in between the gigs. And what and so what does that produce? That produces temporary fixes. It produces a very unbalanced situation. And it produces a very unpredictable kind of a life. It also undermines your confidence because you never really have enough resources for yourself to get all the way to your end results, to your end goals, okay? So the questions I started to ask were, well, and I want you to think about this really more for yourself. Really doesn't matter so much what I did, but you want to start asking for healing, And whatever it is, it could be, if it's healing in your body, that's fine, but sometimes you're dealing with a relationship and you are looking for restoration in a relationship. So you can ask for healing in relationship. You can ask for healing in your finances. You can ask for healing in your parenting. You can ask for whatever the problem that you're facing is, either legal, whatever that problem is that you're facing, you can ask for healing. Okay? And that healing is the first line to restoration and the first line to your solution. And it's very, very important that you do that, because once you do, then it opens up a whole different space. Now, in our mental minds, we have a tendency to go into a place of, I've got to make it happen. And we also have that ulterior motive voice, the voice that says, I'm not going to, it's not going to work. You don't deserve it. Anything that you've done in the past isn't going to work now. Or all the stuff you did in the past is the reason why this is happening, and you deserve to be failing now. Or you deserve to not have whatever it is you're asking for. You deserve to be in a place of lack. You deserve to be in this locked horn stalemate. Okay? And that piece right there, that ego, that inner critic, the Bible, the people, the religious people call it the enemy, the devil, whatever. The spiritual people call it the ego, and the personal development people, call it your negativity, and your baggage, all that kind of stuff. But whatever that, the paradox, that opposing force that is working against you, that piece is the piece that really is giving us the confusion, okay? And that piece, as soon as it sees space, that piece identifies. You take the 20%, right? So you take the faith and you say, okay, I'm going to have faith in it, and then you've got 80% space. Now, from God, all that is, the universe, your guides, your angels, Jesus, whoever it is, that God, that's what Mr. Trivedi always said, the God of your understanding, takes that space, and it's literally a canvas of creation. So it's like, oh, good. And if you keep breathing faith into that space, and you and the way that you breathe faith into that 80% space, gratitude and surrender, a release, allowance, okay? Gratitude and allowance. You're saying thank you. And if you don't feel vulnerable, you're probably muffling it. That was a major distinction that was made in the channeling. Okay? So the real successful way, the way that you get the full success, is if it was the perfect world and we had no doubt, and we had no fears, and we had no negative emotions whatsoever, we would be able to take our 20% faith, we put out our intention, we'd have our 20%, okay, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I'm going to have faith that it is, and then we give that big balloon 80% of space. And the way that we keep pumping air into that balloon is through gratitude. Thank you for providing me with the new XYZ. Thank you for providing me with the new job of my dreams. Thank you for providing me with the new spouse. Thank you for providing me with the new house. Thank you for providing me with the cash or whatever it is. And you're breathing space into that balloon. You're breathing air into that balloon, or helium into that balloon, right? You're just pumping it in because that's your gratitude. Balloon itself is expanding, and it's being filled up by that source energy that you don't have any, you don't have any control over that. You have to admit it. It's just like flying in an airplane. Once you're sitting and you're strapped into that chair, the dude flying the plane is the one who's in control, and you're the passenger. You still have faith you're getting there. You're still seeing your destination. When I get off this plane, I'm going to, get to the hotel. I'm getting my bathing suit, my flip-flops, and I'm going to go into the water as soon as I can, or I'm going to go to the casino, or I'm going to have a drink, or whatever it is. But you have an intention of what's going to happen once you're there. But you are at the mercy of that. You're allowing that pilot to do its job. You're not bum rushing the cockpit. You're not banging down the door. You are literally asking, you're allowing. You say, okay, here's my destination. Now I'm going to fly. And I'm going to just be thankful that I'm going to get on the ground in one piece. I'm going to be thankful that my bags are going to come out first on the conveyor belt, whatever. But turbulent sometimes, and you just sort of say, okay, and you breathe through it, and then you land, and you're off to your destination. You're off to the next journey, the next piece of the journey. Well, that's the best world. Now, here's what happens when we don't do it that way, which is the way most of us have, done this, is we get an idea. We feel like, okay, here's my 20% faith or less. And then instead of the 80% being left to be space, our will, our negative energy, our, whatever those things are, the ego, all those things, it tries to misidentifies the space of the 80% where the creativity is supposed to happen from the energy that we can't see. It tries to hijack that space and fill it up with its own opinion. So it may fill it up with, okay, I've got to go do this, and I've got to muscle that, and I've got to do this, and I've got to try that, and I got to do this, and this isn't going to work, and that's not going to work. And then on top of it, it packs in all the negative energies, all of the recurring thoughts. Oh, you don't deserve this. Oh, you're never going to get this. Oh, this never worked before. Oh, what's going to happen if this doesn't happen? And it fills it up with the catastrophic. It'll fill it up with competition, competitive thoughts. Oh, this one got it, and that one didn't, this one, and I knew that this one was, and that, and it, okay, and it fills it up with that. It fills it up with the doubt. It fills it up with the past. It says, oh, in the past, you've been through this before. This isn't your first rodeo with failure. You've been through this before, and now, you're in big trouble because this is just not going to work. And you better muscle it. You better wrestle it down to the ground. You better figure this out. And what that does is it literally corrupts that space. It's like polluting a pond. It's like pouring gasoline or an oil slick. It's like an oil spill into that space. So instead of having that clear aquarium where you have some seahorses floating around, some angelfish and some, stingrays and whatnot, you have an oil slick pouring it. And so your intention gets darker and darker, muddier and muddier, and more confused. And then you start to wonder, should I even want this? Well, that other person tried it, and it didn't work for them, and all of that. Okay? So when we talk about will, when it's used properly, can be translated into courage, into tenacity, into persistence, where you say, okay, I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep showing up. Made a mistake. Didn't make it this time. I'm going to keep showing up. Grace is when you let that space be clear and you identify it appropriately as space and not emptiness. When you allow that 80% to do its job and you allow that space to be filled with grace, filled with the divine energy, it'll get you there faster. It'll get you there higher to the highest version of what it is you're trying to put your head around, what you're asking for. It'll put you in the right place at the right time and the right people. Okay? And it will provide. That's the grace. If we're taught, especially in America, and I say smart people and educated people, and people who are but I think it's just in general, the Western thought is you always get rewarded for the answer. When you're in school, the one who has all the answers, the kid that has all the right answers is the one that's the most rewarded. When you're in a corporate job or in any kind of major job, it's got to be the right answers. That's what you're rewarded for. And if you ask questions, then you can often look like you don't know what you're doing. But in this work, the question is where the power is. The question is where the power is. Okay? So what you want to do is when we're thinking about will versus grace, you want to appropriately use your will. And you want to appropriately allow for grace. You don't want to pit them against each other. Okay? And that's the point of today's conversation, is that when they go one versus the other, it locks horns, and then all you have is no visible results and a whole lot of anxiety. Okay? And that doesn't get anybody anywhere. The antidote to this is to allow. And the allowance happens when you say, okay, I only have to be in faith. I'm choosing faith. If I choose will, that means I'm going to do 100% of the work. If I choose faith, then that means I'm going to do 20% by holding the vision and the intention. And I'm going to allow the 80% to be faith. And I, 9 times out of 10, will perceive that open space and feel vulnerable. I will feel a sense of vulnerability. I will feel a sense of the unknown, of not knowing how it's going to work out. Okay? And when I feel that sense of unknown, I might misidentify that as a dangerous place. But really, when I'm educated the way you're being educated now, you can now appropriately redirect that energy, okay? Redirect that energy to knowing that this is a place of grace, and that the power comes in the allowance. It's not being lazy. It's not being crazy. It's not being, lost or confused. Or it's about allowing and standing in faith, and it's actually way more powerful than your will could ever be, because it's coming from that heart space. It's coming from a very deep within. Okay? And this is a huge lesson. If you can master this, or when you master this, you will see all kinds of miracles happen. You really, really, really will. Because now, in the spiritual space, we talk about co-creating. We talk about creating together with something else. But most of the time, when we hit that point of unknown, we also feel like we've hit a point of no return, and we have to fill it in because we have to have the answers in order to be right. In order, we have to muscle it. And if you can drop the muscling and add in the allowing, you'll see major, major miracles happen. Okay, so with all of that, my screen has finally come up. I can't believe I just did all that talking, and I just had to troubleshoot my computer simultaneously at the same time. Oh, my God. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we'll start some readings. If you'd like to call in to ask a question tonight, the number is 347-215-9485. That's 347-215-9485. So, I'm Mari. You're listening to the Aha Moments radio show, and we'll be right back.
Step back in time to the very beginning, before life as we know it existed. Stones have been on this earth since before the inception of man. They are keepers of ancient wisdom and messages. Tap into the profound wisdom of stones and let your journey begin at the Rock Girl Sacred Stone School. Let the Rock Girl take you back to those ancient days to learn firsthand the language and the secrets of stones. The Rock Girl will teach you how to develop your very own technique of communicating with them, allowing you to embark on your own path of self-discovery. Courses include Reiki, psychic development, chakra balancing and auric cleansing, hands-on healing, and more. Visit sacredstoneschool.com for classes and workshops taught exclusively by The Rock Girl of therockgirl.com.
Do you ever get a hunch about something and ignore it, only to find out later you were right after all? Do you know that you're intuitive but need help interpreting what you get? Need quick answers to burning questions but don't have the time to wait for a private reading? Then Mari's Intuitive Living Oracle cards are the tool for you. 45 gorgeous laminated cards and a full book of interpretations come together in a beautiful velvet bag. The cards have been designed and energized to give you the answers right now. No more sleepless nights weighing pros and cons. Ask the cards your questions and see what message your intuition has for you. To learn more and get your deck now, go to the store at www.ahamomentsinc.com and click on the Intuitive Living cards now. That's the store at ahamomentsinc.com. The answers are truly within your reach.
Are you living the life you are really meant to live? Soul Lifetimes Magazine is your online source for creating the life you truly desire. When you register for your free subscription at www.soullifetimes.com, you get access to a world of resources that will help you to get the answers you seek and inspire you to take charge of your world. Tap into your body, mind, and spirit with articles from some of the most well-known conscious thought leaders and teachers on metaphysics, soul talk, soulmate relationships, quantum healing, astrology, food for the soul, style, and more. When you join us to create a joyful lifestyle for a new way of being, you truly contribute to raising the consciousness of the world. Subscribe for free at www.soullifetimes.com and never miss an issue of this innovative and insightful digital magazine. Soul Lifetimes Magazine is about living happier, healthier lives full of purpose, joy, and abundance. Subscribe now for free at www.soullifetimes.com. We look forward to seeing you there.
Are you at a crossroads in your life, facing big decisions about your life purpose, business, relationships, or other major issues? Are you wondering why you may be delayed in getting what you want? Or if you have special guides who are helping you? Then investing in a private intuitive reading with Mari is just what you need. As a third-generation spiritual intuitive, Mari has worked with thousands of clients over the past 18 years. During your private session, you will learn who your guides are, receive insight on the core issues that need attention, and get new perspective, clarity, and inspiration on what to do next. To register, go to www.ahamomentsinc.com and click on the Work with Mari tab to get all of the details. There are a limited number of spots each month, so go to www.ahamomentsinc.com for yours now. All right.
Hello, we're back. I'm Mari. You're listening to the Aha Moments radio show, and today we're talking all about will versus grace, how to solve your biggest problems energetically. And if you'd like to call in and ask a question, we have a few of you here on the line already and ready, all queued up, ready to go to ask. You can call in at 347-215-9485. So, I wanted to just review, because this is such an important topic that can get there, especially when you get more advanced in the spiritual work, that can really get in, it can really get confusing, because you start to ask these questions of yourself. You start to second guess, and it's either, am I asking a question or am I second guessing? Am I supposed to be, waiting or am I supposed to be taking action? All right? So there's a time, and I think we talked about this last week, where we're talking about the navigation system and kind of having that lag time where you're just supposed to be on the road before you get to that next exit. And that really comes into play with this. It really, really comes into play with this, because as you're going through these processes, that space can take time to develop. However, you will get, along the way, in that 80%, when that 80% is doing its thing and, it's all working everything out, you will get signs, you will get symbols, you will get synchronicities, you will get meet people, you'll get support along the way in how, some way, somehow. And if you can handle it without filling it with an oil spill, without cannibalizing the good work that you've done, you can allow the smaller pieces to come forward to let you know, yes, you're on the right track, this is configuring. Okay, and that's what you want to be looking for when you're kind of in that space of you've done your 20%, now you're allowing the 80% to do its job. Okay, so you want to just keep your eyes peeled and keep your focus on what it is you desire and gratitude. What it is you desire and gratitude. Assuming that it's already done. I know that's like a kind of cliche in our spirituality world, but when they say you want to assume that what you're doing is you're holding on to your 20%. You're projecting. I don't want to say holding on because I don't want you to feel like you're gripping, but you're still projecting your 20%. When you say, okay, I already see myself in that house, I already see myself in that wonderful job, I already see myself married to that perfect person, I am holding my space. I'm holding my faith in this direction. Okay, I'm projecting my space. I'm projecting my faith. I'm projecting, the screen of what this is going to match. And if, it's funny, the guides just channeled something to me. Just a second. So listen up. They just showed me. And I was like, oh, that's a really good point. They're like, okay, so think of yourself in an art class, a drawing class, and you've got the thing that you're drawing in the front of the class, bowl of fruit, naked guy, whatever, okay? Get your thing in the front of the class. And then you have the students, the artists, who are in the middle of the class with their, medium of choice, their pens and their, pencils and whatever, paints, and they're looking up at the model, and then they're going back to the canvas and drawing it out. And they're looking at the model, and they're creating it on the canvas. And they look up at the model, and they create it on the canvas. Now, if you looked up at the front of the class, and the model kept changing, one minute the model's standing, the next minute the model's sitting down, the next minute the model's standing on the head, the next minute the model's gone all together, the next minute is a dog, now it's not a person, and the next minute it's a bowl of fruit, and then they switch it out, and they say, oh, God, then it's just a big black space, and then all of a sudden it's a big space, and then the person who's putting all the stuff up at the front of the room starts yelling at the artist in the back of the room, like, why aren't you doing what I want? That's what it's like. That's what it's like. So you have to hold your vision very focused in the front of the room. Artists can get it right on the canvas. And, good artists like to take what they call license to make whatever they're looking at in the front of the room look better than than what might be in the front of the room. They like to take creative license. Now, you could also, if you're going to do this vision work of this art class, you could also, instead of putting a model that can change and, change form and, stand up and sit down or bowl of fruit or whatever, something solid, you could flash a screen of a picture. So let's say you want to take a trip to Tahiti. Obviously, you're not going to put the whole art class in Tahiti. You're going to take a big screen and put that scene on Tahiti on the screen. Let the artist now work off the picture, the photograph. So for you, when you're doing this vision work and you're thinking, okay, my 20% is flashing the picture, being the model, holding the model up, just making sure the model is exactly what I'm desiring to show up on the canvas. And then the 80% is allowing the art class, the artist, to come up with whatever it is they're going to come up with from the focal point. So that's why it's important for you to hold on to your vision. Keep that focal point. Okay? And the only will that's really involved with this is the accuracy of what your focal point is. So if you're saying, well, I want a new home, and you say, oh, I want to live in a log cabin in Seattle or in let's say Wyoming. I want a log cabin on a lake, and I want to go fishing every day and whatever. And you say, okay, to the artist, I want a new house. Artist's like, okay, they can see a house across town, in the middle of Times Square. Who knows? But if you say, no, then you say, oh, no, that's not the house I wanted. I really wanted the log cabin on the lake in Wyoming. They say, oh, well, you didn't say that. You just said you want a house. So that's why they say get into the detail of the vision. So you're at the front of the art class, and you say, okay, what I'm looking for is a really pretty log cabin in the front, in the room, by the lake in Wyoming. And they say, oh, okay. And you have a picture of it. Oh, okay. Well, now we got to duplicate the picture. Okay. You also, on that picture, you tell them, and here's the terms. So you might say, I want to own that house free and clear. I want to pay for that house in cash. I want to make sure that I own it, not rent it. You might say, I want to rent the villa in Paris. I want to rent a place in, Thailand. So you can, but you have to say the terms also, so the artists know, okay? And the way that would translate into an art class is, okay, I want this in pen and ink, or I want this in pastels, I want this in oils, I want this in acrylics, I want this in crayons or pencils or finger paints or whatever. But this is the medium that I want. I want it on canvas, or I want it on, silk, or I want it on, silk screen or whatever. But you are giving them the medium to work with. So you're giving them the terms of what you want. So when you say, okay, I want the house, and I want it on the lake in Wyoming, and I want, great weather, blah, 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 I want to be able to go fishing, you're giving them the terms. You're giving them the kind of the details around it. But also, when we're dealing with our own energetic creations, our own energetic art studio, we are also putting in the emotion. So you're saying how you want to feel when you're in Wyoming, in your log cabin, with your fishing rod, or whatever it is. Okay, so that's what you're telling the artist. I want to feel this way. I want to feel warm. I want to feel connected to my family. I want to feel free. I want to feel like I don't have any, financial burdens. I want to feel kind of off the grid. I want to feel a release of burden. And so that's the model that you put at the front of the room. That's your 20%. You are giving creative direction to your team of artists. Okay, I was actually in the advertising business for a very long time, and I always had to do a creative brief for my teams. And I was on the corporate side, so I was like with AT&T, and then I was running all these big ad campaigns, and so I had all these different ad agencies in New York City, Madison Avenue, and I would go and meet with them, and we'd have a great lunch, and it'd be all shishi foo-foo, and I would say, okay, here's our strategy, this is what we want, da-da-da-da, and then they'd say, oh, okay, Mari, and they would ask for the creative brief, we'd give it to them, and then they come back with what we called first round. And first round was the first round of their ideas of how to interpret what we were asking for in the brief. And then we'd say, okay, yeah, all right, so we're in the right direction, but we want this and not that and that. Now, you were really good at what you did, and you knew how to speak to artists in the way that artists speak, the way that they think. That creative brief could get you a really good execution, what we call in first round, meaning they got it right in first round, meaning they got it right the first try, because the brief was so clear to them, and then they were able to execute it, and then they got it right. And then it was a little tweak here and a little tweak there, and then it was ready to go to market. If you were not particularly good at translating what your vision was, or you didn't know, and then you threw something out at them, then they kind of went off in their creative directions trying to sort out what you meant, then they throw back something that's not the right. So then you say, no, that's not it. I'll know it when I see it. Keep coming back with something. I'll know it when I see it. And then you have a mess. And it becomes very expensive because everybody's getting paid for their time. Right? So you really had to get very clear and clean about how to communicate with the artist. So me, I would go to the agency and say, I want to meet with the director of the art, and I want to meet with the copywriters, and I want to meet with the art guys and the photographers, and I want to talk to them face to face. I don't want the account executive in between. I don't need the middleman. She can sit there, but I want to be able to have a conversation so they can really, to them as I can. And we nailed it on first round, just pretty much most of the time. You know, maybe we have some tweaks, but I even know, like, teams that I use now for my business, we, you know, I know how to speak in that language, right? So we get it always on first round. We don't ever have to go 3, 4, 5 rounds with anything. So this is what you need to do when you're working with this will versus grace. Okay, now, there are other times when I have seen art campaigns go crazy, advertising campaigns go crazy, because the client starts to try to will and muscle the art team. They would go in and they would criticize everything, and they would slash everything, and they would say and they would expect their mind to be read, and they would try to exert so much will and power that they would shut down the creativity of the art team, and the art team would just try to march to what's going to get approved. They started to draw and photography will do whatever, create the campaign around what do they think the guy is going to approve, what is he going to say yes to, instead of what's the best execution that's going to work. And that's what you do when you will your ideas forward. Okay, is you finally you just literally suffocate the energy out of them. So if, you know, we're going to get on to some readings now, but I wanted to make that point because the guys brought it up now. And if you take an inventory of how you've been interrelating with whatever problems you're going through right now, the biggest problem, take the biggest one and put it up in front of the room and show, how do I want this to look when it's solved? Imagine yourself in an art studio and you got the artist on one side of the room and you're in the front of the room and you flash a picture on that screen of what do you want when it's solved. It might be you holding the hands of the spouse and looking at the artist and smiling. It might be a snippet of time that implies that all of these other things are in place. You know, it could be the new car you want, or it could be the baby that you've been wanting to have, whatever. But you want to make sure that you get up in front of that room and it's very clear, and then you allow the artist to work on it. Now, they may ask questions. How does the universe ask you questions? Okay, is this what you want? Something comes up and you say, oh, that's close, but that's not quite it. I'm getting closer. And then you go back into your meditation, you say, no, here's what it is. This is what I want. And then it reconfigures, okay? So I want you to play with that. Let me know how that goes. And let's get on to doing some conversations here. So if you've been waiting on the line, thank you for waiting. And if you want to call in, it's 347-215-9485. So we are going to start off with Carissa in Kansas. Hi, Carissa.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
Hello.
Good. Can you hear me?
What's your question? Yep, I can hear you fine. What's your question?
I was listening to what you were saying with the will versus grace, and I think I've come to realize that I've really been pushing. A lot of people say that I push myself too hard, but that I've been pushing other people too hard with my will, trying to really impose my truth, and I've been kind of coming to that. So I guess my question is, because I can't see a vision, like I don't have. I mean, my question is, if I don't have a vision now, because I've realized that I've been pushing people and not allowing them to just be and not appreciating their space, which has caused backlash for me, how I can develop that picture. How can I redefine myself?
Beautiful question. Thank you for that. That's a really, really good question. So, and it's nice that it has to do with the topic we're talking about. So that's great. So when you are, whenever somebody comes to me and they start asking me immediately about people, relationship people, whether it's work people or, boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever it is, I always know that there's something within themselves that they're not working on, because the people just always reflect what's going on within you, always. So if they're rejecting you, there's something you're rejecting yourself. They're betraying you, in some way you're betraying yourself. They're abandoning you, there's some way you're abandoning yourself. If they're celebrating you, it's some way you're allowing celebration within yourself. So, and we could go down every other, emotion you want. So what I would say is, don't worry about the people. What I would consider is, what would the scenario look like where you were really happy? That's the vision you want to put up. I wouldn't try to plug in this person versus that person, and this one, needs their space and all that. I would let all that go, because they're just mirrors of you. And I would focus on, okay, in whatever category you're referring to in your life, whether it's relationship or work or, children, whatever it is, I would focus on what is the scenario that you want, what do you want that scene to look like? And that sometimes takes development. And if you can't see a scene of what you want it to look like, how do you want to feel? That's really the beginnings of it. So sometimes it requires that if you've been focusing all on relationship, and that's not working out, sometimes it means that you're supposed to go back to career, so that you can have, because with your career you start to have more of a relationship with yourself. And you focus on, okay, what would make the life I desire super happy and not codependent on the way anybody else is reacting to me? How could I create that life? And that may not be even from the career space. That might be, how do you play? How do you, it might be that you have a hobby you want to pursue, whatever. But you have to really create the life for you that really makes your own heart sing, and be willing to be honest with yourself of what that really is. And I think you're fine with vision, but I think your will kind of flashes it with, I can't have that, so I'm not going to think about it, before you even let yourself get the vision out. So I think you need to play with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, can you go over that just so what you're saying is because you were talking earlier about how your will and grace can clash when your will, because you're talking about needing 20% faith. I feel like I have 100% faith, but there are definitely things that I do not have 100% faith in.
Right. And
when I think about it, I hardly have 20% faith in it. So I guess what you're saying is that my will is clashing because I don't believe, because I don't have that faith. That
well, you can't have faith.
I'm not allowing.
It's very hard to have faith in something that hasn't happened yet. That's what they're saying, and that's why even in the Bible it says Jesus says, just give me the faith of a mustard seed, I'll move the mountain. I just need a little bit of the faith. The human expectation of a human in physical being is a mustard seed, because they know that unless it's proven out in the physical world, having 100% faith in anything when you're in body is really not normal. It's not that it's totally impossible, but it's a lot more possible when you've had proof in the past. So, before you could walk, you watch all the adults walking, like, I wonder if I could do that. Well, you don't know. You think maybe you could. Everybody says you'll eventually be able to do it, but you don't really know until you go walking across the floor. So, you give it a good try, but that's 20% faith. You see the adults walking, okay, well, maybe I'll scooch. Okay, maybe I'll try to stand up. They're standing up, and then, you stand up, you fall down, but you don't give up. So that's the point. And I'm going to have to jump on to the next person. I would say listen to the podcast again, because you'll probably get it a little better when you listen to the playback. But I think you're on the right track, because you're asking the right questions, and I wouldn't worry so much about the percentages. I would focus more on your own personal vision. And just making sure that now you have an awareness that 80% of that space is the canvas of creation, and the vision that you have is just what you're holding up at the front of the room for that canvas to create on. Okay, so I'm going to have to jump off because we have a bunch of other people on the line, so I hope that's helped.
Yes,
have a great night. You are so welcome. You are so welcome. Okay, she had a really good question, and I know that's, a lot of people say I don't have a vision. A lot of times, I think everybody really does have a vision, but we have a tendency to use our will to kill it before we allow ourselves to see it. So that's where you need to just get very quiet, go out to a place in nature, get a notebook, and be really honest. Really, really honest. And when you start to feel it in your tummy, you start to feel that flutter in your heart, and then you almost feel, sometimes you'll get that negative voice that kind of sideswipes it. When you hear that, oh, you could never do that, that's the thing. That's the thing. Okay? All right, so next we have Gavin in New York. Hi, Gavin.
Hi, Maury.
How are you?
Better after hearing your call.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and one of my sort of side points was my not being able to form my vision, and you just addressed that beautifully for me.
Oh, good.
I'm coming out of I'm in my 60s, and I'm just coming out of a long place of victimhood and focusing on negativity. And not necessarily, focusing on it, but it's like been part of me.
Right.
And I'm just starting to do a few things, like I was juicing today, and I'm just taking, but that also is like taking a will to change my habits. I guess I was wondering if, when I'm listening to some of these shows or when I'm reading, my faith can be large. It's almost like the minute I stand up and start walking around, it disappears. It's like being schizophrenic, and I don't know that that's the right word, but it's like being split into two things.
Because you run your day by your will, and then your grace gets a word in edgewise when you sit and listen to a show. But you feel very safe. It's a very safe place to be in the victim. And it's very, very safe. It's very cozy. It's cozy because there's all kinds of, there's inertia. You don't have to move. You're not, sometimes you're not even leaving the house. You can sort of just sit and, like a cat licking its leg. You're just sitting there, you want, and everybody's out to get you anyway, so that means you shouldn't even move because you want to, you can justify so much of the inertia as stillness and blah, blah, blah. So you taking that step forward meant that somewhere in all of that, you held a new vision for yourself up at the front of the room and said, how do I get out of this? And then the art team said, oh, let's start self-care is the first thing. So now you're starting to juice. Now you're starting to listen to shows. You're starting to ask the right questions. Well, why is it when I listen to a show, I feel expansion, and when I get off the show, I feel constriction and contraction? And it's because you kind of default, and your screensaver is idling on, it can't work for me. And now you're just going through a transition of, I'm changing my paradigm where I'm going to say, yes, it can work for me, and I realize I don't have to be perfect, because the will always says, if you're not perfect at it, it's not worth doing. And so when you get off the call, you say, oh, well, that sounded really good for Mari, but and it's so much easier just to sort of sit there and say, well, let's listen to the podcast again, and, well, now she contradicted herself, so I don't know if I should trust it, because she just said one story, now she said the other story, and that sounds like the opposite of the first story, so, that kind of thing, and you just get into the spin, and that spin goes along with victimhood, because victimhood and analysis paralysis, and justification of all the analysis paralysis, finding all the negative things that have happened to everybody else, you're collecting negative information, that all goes into that one pot. It's a hard, now you've taken a step out of that. Remember that, if your muscles are used to going in one direction, you have to train them to go in the other. Yeah. And training means that, you put in the right direction and it snaps back. And you put in the right direction and it snaps back. Then you put in the right direction and it holds a little bit longer this time and it snaps back. You know what I mean? But then you know faster when it's snapping back, so you stop it before it snaps all the way back. And that's how healing goes. So you're looking for that all or nothing, and I think that's what happens to people when they listen to these shows. I've done, well over 600 episodes of shows now, and I've seen it, in classes and with other, business partners of mine and stuff, and we see it over and over and over and over and over again. And even in the classes I take myself and for myself, we have this expectation that once we get the epiphany in our head, oh, yeah, that makes sense. You got the art, the mountain hole in the front of the room, and the art, the canvas, and they're doing the drawings, and yeah, I get it. Like we're going to have an instantaneous change for all of our life. Okay, I got it in my head. My mental mind finally said, oh, yeah, boom, I had a V8. There it is. But we then expect our muscles that are used to going in a complete opposite direction to just pony up. And remember that you have been telling yourself for a really long time, whether you consciously did it or not, that being that old way, the victim way, was safe. That's the only reason why you do it. It's safe. It's very safe to be like that. So now that what goes along when you go into the art studio, okay, what goes along with the art studio and having that set of artists is the vulnerability of the person standing up at the front of the room. I have to do a photo shoot next week for my cover for my book, and I've been talking to my photographer, and I said, I hope you know that you're also a therapist, because it's stressful to think about being on the cover of a book that's going to outlive you. And you got to get it right. Oh my God. And she said, you have no idea of how many people say that, because the subject is vulnerable, because you don't know what the artist is going to make you look like when they're done. So when you put that vision up on the screen, and you say to God, Jesus, whoever else is, your creative team of angels or whatever you consider to be in that team, okay, bring this vision to fruition, you're waiting to see the first round of what they have come up with. It's a vulnerable place. It does not feel safe. And if you feel safe, you're probably in your old habits. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'd like you to do when you go into your meditation is to ask your guides to help you to feel safe with a healthy sense of vulnerability. And being willing, and this is for everybody listening, being willing to live with the ambiguity. In America in particular, it's very hard for us to live with ambiguity because we're very, 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 very driven for results. Before, after. She was this fat, she was this skinny. Now. They don't talk about all the days in between, the 250-pound picture and the 110-pound picture. They don't talk about all the days, the trials, the tribulations, the backslides. They don't talk about all that. It's just before, after. We're kind of, in the U.S. in particular, we're very driven like that. So we have a tendency, and also, listen, when you're being marketed to with all these shows and everything, to get people to listen to the show, we're going to solve everything instantaneously, and if you don't feel it, then you got to come back again, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you have to give yourself some space to practice. I'm going to jump off because I realize I'm looking at the time, but I hope that's helped a little bit. And
it's been very helpful, and I'm very grateful.
Oh, thank you. I'm grateful for you as well. Keep us posted on how you do, Gavin.
I will. Thanks, Mari.
Okay, take care. Have a great night. Okay, everybody. Well, I guess we have come to the end of yet another Aha Moments radio show. I want you to do a favor for me this Mercury in retrograde. I want you to put it out of your mind. Put it out of your mind. And I want you to create like what we were talking about today. Really flash that thing up on the screen, focus on it, and ask, if you get stuck, ask for clarity. Ask for courage. Ask for willingness. Ask for the acceleration of your results. Okay? And then give lots and lots of gratitude. Gratitude makes them draw faster. All right? So until next time, same place, I will bid you adieu with my motto, which is you truly can have exactly what you want. You absolutely deserve it too. And in this new energy, anything is possible. Take care, everybody. See you next week.